My husband died on a Tuesday, and 5 minutes after he took his last breath, another woman walked into the room crying and called him baby. I was 89 years old. I had lotion on my hands from rubbing his cold fingers. I was still whispering, "I love you," to a dead man, when a woman I had never seen in my life pushed through that door and fell on his chest sobbing. She called him baby. She called him my Raymond. She said, "You cannot leave me." And I just stood there, lotion on my hands, prayer still on my lips, staring at a stranger who somehow knew my husband well enough to grieve him like I was grieving him. That is how I found out. Not from a phone, not from a friend, not from lipstick on a collar. My husband's heart stopped, and the truth walked through the door 5 minutes later, wearing mascara and perfume. But that woman in the doorway was just the beginning, because what I found out over the next 6 months made that hospital room look like the easy part. Married Raymond in 1967. I was 23, he was 26. We got married in a church full of 200 people. My daddy walked me down the aisle. Raymond cried when he saw me in my dress, and I thought, this man is going to love me forever. And he did love me, or at least he loved half of me, because the other half of his love was going somewhere else. I just did not know it yet. We had 3 daughters, RJ, Keisha and Janelle. I raised those girls on my own most days, because Raymond was always working late or helping Marcus with something or picking up an extra shift. I never questioned it, not once, because I trusted him. And trust is a funny thing. Once you give it to somebody, you stop looking for reasons to take it back, even when the reasons are sitting right in front of you. But I will get to those reasons, because there were signs, big ones, and I missed every single one of them. The nurse came first. Young girl, maybe 25. She looked at me strange and said, "Mom, are you his wife?" I said yes. She got very quiet. Then she said, "There is another woman in the waiting room saying the same thing." My daughter, Janelle, was behind me. She grabbed my arm because my legs gave out. My brain went blank, not a single thought, just silence. Like someone reached inside my head and turned off the power, I walked down that hallway, around the corner, and there she was, mid-40s, sitting in a plastic chair, mascara everywhere. And next to her, 2 kids, a boy about 14 and a girl about 17. The boy looked up at me, and my whole body went cold. He had Raymond's face. Same chin, same dimple, same gap in his teeth. I was staring at my husband's son, a son I had never heard of. A son who had been alive for 14 years while I sat at home, thinking I knew everything about the man I married. I walked up to that woman and said 2 words. "How long?" She said, "Since 93. My baby was 3 years old in 93. I just had a C-section 6 weeks before. My stitches had not healed. I was at home bleeding from surgery, breastfeeding a newborn, making dinner for 2 little girls, and Raymond was already with her. He started his second family before my body healed from giving him his 3rd daughter. Researchers say less than 1% of affairs turn into full double lives with children lasting decades. I was in that 1%, and I did not even know it until I was 89 years old, standing in a hospital with lotion on my hands. But the hospital was just the surface. What my daughters found after the funeral was so much worse. My daughter Keisha went through Raymond's things. She found a composition notebook with a black and white cover, the kind kids use in school. She opened it and called me, crying so hard I thought someone else had died. Inside, Raymond had written out his entire schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday at home with me. Tuesday, Thursday at her house. Weekends he rotated. He had it all planned out like shift work at a factory. But that was not the worst part. There were entries going back years. One from 2007 said, "Told D fishing trip with Marcus. Told V dentist appointment." D is me, Dorothy. V is her, Vanessa. He turned us into letters. 52 years of marriage, and I was just a D on a page. A letter, an abbreviation. Something you write faft because it does not matter enough to spell out. And the money. Raymond made about $65,000 a year at the paper mill. Good money, but we were always broke. I cut coupons every single week. I wore the same winter coat for 9 years. The zipper broke, and I held it shut with a safety pin for the last 2. Every month, he poured $1,500 in cash and gave it to Vanessa for 26 years. That is close to $470,000, almost $500,000. That money could have fixed the roof that leaked into my kitchen for 3 years, could have sent my girls to better schools, but this one will never leave me. My mama needed to see a heart specialist in Atlanta, $800 plus the trip. Raymond said we could not afford it, so my mama died in a county hospital from something a specialist might have caught. And that same month, according to his notebook, he took Vanessa and the kids to Six Flags, bought 4 season passes. My mother died, and he was on a roller coaster. I cannot say that without my hands shaking, even now, even at 94. His phone would ring late at night, and he would walk outside to answer. He started buying a second cologne, said it was for his gym locker. One time I found a receipt for a restaurant I had never been to. Table for 2, $57, on a Saturday night. He said it was a work lunch, but the one that haunts me most was 2015. He left his phone on the counter. It buzzed. A text popped up. "The kids miss you." I did not know the number. When he came out of the shower, I asked about it, and without flinching, without even a pause, he said, "Oh, that is Marcus. His grandkids call me Uncle Ray." And I bought it. I was the smartest woman in every room my whole life, top of my class, ran my church finance committee for 12 years. But love put blinders on me, and Raymond knew exactly how to keep them there. Now those signs matter. But what happened next matters even more. Because it was not just Raymond who lied to me. His brother Charles knew. His best friend Marcus knew. My neighbour Linda knew. The lady at the dry cleaners once asked me, casual as asking about the weather, "How do you handle your husband having 2 households?" I thought she meant our house and the shed. She was not talking about a shed. Vanessa knew about me from day one. She told me at the hospital. Raymond told her he was separated. For 26 years he was about to file for divorce. She either believed that, or she chose not to ask questions. I think she chose the second one. Even my pastor knew. Pastor Williams at Second Baptist. Raymond confessed to him in 2005. And that man watched me sit in his front pew every Sunday for 14 years. He led our marriage retreat in 2011, called Raymond and me an example of a godly marriage in front of the whole congregation. And he knew the entire time. 2 weeks after the funeral, he came to my house, sat on my couch with his hands folded like he was about to pray. And he told me he could not break pastoral confidentiality. I stood up out of my chair. I looked at that man and I said, "You married us. You counseled us. You ate dinner in this house. You told a church full of people that we were what a Christian marriage should be. And you knew he had another woman and 2 other children the whole time." He opened his mouth and nothing came out. I said, "Get out of my house and do not come back." I have not stepped foot in that church since. God and I still talk. We do it from my living room now. He understands. Studies say 70% of people who know about a friend's affair never tell. 7 out of 10 will watch you get destroyed and say nothing. An entire town knew my life was a lie. Not one person loved me enough to say it out loud. I called Charles the day after the funeral. I said, "You ate my sweet potato pie for 20 years and you could not open your mouth one time?" He said, "It was not my place." Not his place. He had enough place to eat my food, but not enough place to save my life. Janelle walked up to Marcus at the repast and said, "You were not his friend. You were his accomplice." Marcus stood there with a plate of potato salad and his mouth hanging open. Nothing to say. 20 years of loyalty to a dead man's secret, and he had nothing. And Linda. She came over a week later and said she saw a woman in his truck in 2010. Thought it was his cousin. At 7 in the morning. Nobody's cousin shows up at 7 a.m. Linda borrowed my lawnmower, drank my coffee, came to my birthday dinners, and she knew for 8 years. Both families showed up. My kids on the right, her kids on the left. You could feel it in the room, thick as smoke. Half the congregation already knew about Raymond's double life. The other half were finding out in real time by watching 2 sets of children grieve the same man from opposite sides of a church. The pastor had to stop the service twice. Once, because Keisha started shaking so bad, the woman next to her thought she was having a seizure. She was not. She was looking across the aisle at a 14-year-old boy who had her father's face. That does something to you. Seeing proof of a lie walking around in a suit. And then Vanessa did something I will never forget as long as I live. My daughter Janelle got up to say a few words about her father. She was talking about how Raymond taught her to ride a bike, how he used to call her my little firecracker. And right in the middle of it, Vanessa, from her side of the church, said out loud, loud enough for every single person to hear, "He was my husband too," during a funeral, in a house of God, in front of my grandchildren. The whole room went silent. My 11-year-old grandson tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Grandma, who is that lady?" I squeezed his hand and said nothing. Because what was I supposed to say? That is your grandfather's other woman? That your grandpa had a whole other family you never met? There are no words for that. Not for a child. Not for anyone. But then something happened I did not expect. After the service, the boy, Raymond's other son, walked up to me. 14 years old, suit too big for him, tie tied crooked, hands stuffed in his pockets. And he looked at me and said, "I am sorry, ma'am." A child. A child said sorry to me for what a grown man did. That boy did not ask to be born into a lie. Nobody gave him a choice. And I think about him all the time. I hope he turned out okay. I really do. RJ went silent for 3 months, would not talk to anyone. Keisha had panic attacks for 2 years, needed therapy. Janelle drove to Vanessa's house, knocked on the door and said, "My father was not your husband. He was ours." Vanessa slammed the door. I lost 22 pounds, could not eat. Food tasted like nothing. I would sit at the kitchen table with a plate in front of me and just stare at it. That table is where he sat every night, where he ate the food I cooked him, where he looked me in the eyes and lied to me 1,000 times. I could not sit there without seeing his face, so I stopped eating there. I stopped eating much at all. Blood pressure went haywire. Doctor added 2 new pills. He told me, "Dorothy, whatever you are carrying, you need to put it down or it will kill you." I said, "How do you put down 52 years of lies?" I could not sleep either. I lay in bed at 2 in the morning staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every holiday, every birthday, trying to figure out which smiles were real and which ones were rehearsed, trying to remember if he ever slipped, if he ever called me the wrong name, if he ever looked at me funny after coming home from her house. And you know what is the worst part? I cannot find a single moment where he broke character. Not one. 26 years, and he never once dropped the mask. That is not a man who made a mistake. That is a man who chose to perform every single day of his life. Research says older adults who go through major betrayal have a 47% higher chance of heart problems within 2 years. I am not a statistic. I am proof. Keisha found a storage unit. Key was in his wallet. Inside were boxes, photo albums I never saw, report cards from his other kids, crayon drawings that said, "I love you, Daddy," pictures of him holding a baby born in 2004. That day, I was home watching TV. He came back and said he'd been at a work seminar. I made him meatloaf. He kissed my forehead, went to sleep. His son had been born hours earlier. Christmas. He did Christmas with both families, every year. 98, he left at noon. Said he was helping a friend move. Gone 6 hours. He was with them, opening presents, while my girls waited for their daddy to come home and cut the ham. My youngest asked, "Mama, why does Daddy always leave on Christmas?" And I made an excuse for him. I helped the man who was lying to me. I covered for him and did not even know it. 2012, kitchen table, Tuesday night. He was staring at the wall. I asked what was wrong. He said, "Dorothy, if I ever hurt you, I need you to know it was never on purpose." I said, "Baby, what are you talking about?" He shook his head. "Nothing. Forget it." So I made him tea, rubbed his back, held the man who was destroying me, and he let me. He drank that tea and went to bed and never said another word. He walked right to the edge of the truth and turned around. Because the truth meant losing his warm house, his cooked meals, his wife who waited up every night. Raymond did not love 2 women. He loved having 2 women. That is different. That is worse. His brother said Raymond did all of this because he wanted a son. I gave him 3 girls. 3 brilliant, strong, beautiful girls who are now teachers and nurses and mothers. But that was not enough for him. Vanessa gave him a boy in 95, and instead of stopping, instead of coming home and being grateful for what he had, he just kept going, built a whole life around the son he wanted, like his daughters were not worth staying for. Like 3 girls who loved him with everything they had were somehow less than a boy he had to sneak around to see. My daughter Keisha said something a few months after the funeral that broke me all over again. She said, "Mama, do you think Daddy loved us?" And I did not know what to say. Because the honest answer is, I do not know anymore. I thought he did. I thought every hug, every bedtime story, every school play he showed up to was real. But now I look back and I wonder, was he checking his watch during those plays? Was he thinking about the other kids? Was he counting the minutes until he could leave and go be with them? I will never know. And that not knowing is its own kind of torture. After the funeral, Vanessa tried to take half my house in court. She showed up with a lawyer, sat in a courtroom and said she deserved half of a home she never cleaned, never painted, never fixed. A house where she never scrubbed a toilet or patched a wall or stayed up all night with a sick child. The judge threw her out in 45 minutes. But the nerve. 26 years of back doors, and she tried to walk through the front one. And the life insurance. Raymond had a $50,000 policy. The backup name on it was not his daughter's. It was Vanessa. The man I spent my entire life with made sure his other woman would get paid if he died. My girls had to fight in probate court just to get what was theirs. They should not have had to fight for a single thing. But Raymond made sure that even from the grave, his lie kept going. I threw out everything Raymond ever owned. His clothes, his tools, his shoes. Every item I touched, I thought, were you wearing this when you were with her? My daughters and I filled 12 garbage bags. 52 years on a sidewalk outside Goodwill. That is what a double life adds up to. Garbage bags. If Raymond was sitting in front of me right now, I would say this. You stole my life. Not just my money, my choice. I had the right to decide for myself. I could have left. I could found someone who gave me everything instead of leftovers. But you put me in a cage made of lies, and I decorated it like a home. I hung curtains, I swept the floors, I made it beautiful. And it was all fake. Trust your gut. If something does not add up, it does not add up. And if you know someone is being cheated on, open your mouth. Every person who stayed quiet was lying to me, the same as Raymond was. Silence is just a prettier word for betrayal. Do I regret the marriage? I regret him, not my daughters, not the slow dances in the kitchen when he put on Sam Cooke and spun me around. My love was real. The man I gave it to was not. At 94, I loved a ghost. A man who was never all the way in the room, always 1 foot out the door. Headed 20 minutes down the road to a life I did not know about. The truth needed air, even when it burns. Thank you for letting an old woman finally breathe.